Do you want to know how to easily make a restaurant-quality filet mignon at home? A delicious steak recipe with a perfectly seared crust and super tender meat. Hey there, I'm London Brazil from EvolvingTable.com, where you learn how to make nourishing meals for your loved ones. And today I'll be teaching you how to perfectly cook a filet mignon. There is absolutely nothing more impressive than a juicy and tender cut of steak. But instead of spending a ton of money at a fancy restaurant, did you know that you can actually make one at home? Before I first attempted cooking a filet mignon, I was absolutely terrified of ruining it. After all, this steak is pretty pricey. With a little research, a bit of trial and error, I figured out a few tips and tricks that will get you a perfectly crusty sear and juicy tender meat every single time. So if you're ready to get to cooking, then come on in and let's get started. We'll first start off by preheating our oven to 400 degrees. You'll want to grab your steak from the refrigerator about 25 to 30 minutes before cooking. This extra time allows the steak to completely come to room temperature. If you are cooking more than one, it's best to buy fillets that are close to the same size so they cook at a similar rate. Before we start cooking, let's go over the different types of filet mignons you will find at your grocery store. You can find USDA choice and prime cuts of meat, as well as grass-fed filet mignon. Typically, prime cuts have slightly more marbling or fat and are found with a higher price tag at specialty butcher shops. USDA choice is still an excellent pick if you would like to find a good balance between tenderness and price. The cut of meat that I'll be cooking today is a grass-fed steak. Grass-fed steak is a bit leaner and is full of healthy fats, antioxidants, and vitamins. We'll first pat dry our filet and then coat it liberally in a lot of coarse salt and pepper. Make sure to give it a lot of love, since this is what gives the filet mignon that crusty sear. And don't forget to coat all of the sides. Our filet has been at room temperature for 30 minutes, it's properly seasoned, so now it's just time to get to cooking. Since we will be cooking our filet mignon on the stovetop first, and then transferring it into the oven, you'll want to make sure and use an oven-safe skillet. A well-seasoned cast iron skillet or a stainless steel skillet are both safe to use and will transfer the heat evenly to the steaks while cooking. My personal preference is a cast iron skillet, so that's what we'll be using here today. Heat the skillet over medium-high heat for 2 to 3 minutes. Pour 1 tablespoon of a high smoke point oil into the skillet. Today I'm using avocado oil, but you can also use canola, vegetable, or grapeseed oil instead. Wait until the oil starts to sizzle and smoke a little bit before adding the steak. Cook the filet mignon for 2 to 3 minutes without moving. This step is very important to get that perfectly seared crust. Once the side is sufficiently seared, you should be able to easily flip it over without much or any resistance. Repeat this process on the other side of the steak. Sear the remaining sides for a total of 1 minute. Immediately after searing the steak, pop the skillet into the preheated 400-degree oven for 4 to 5 minutes. The best way to check a steak for doneness and not overcook it is to use a meat thermometer. For a medium rare steak, you will want to pull it out of the oven when the temperature reads 125 degrees. For a medium steak, pull it out of the oven when the temperature reads 130 degrees. As soon as you pull it out of the oven, place the steak on a plate at room temperature. The steak will continue to cook, and the internal temperature will increase by 5 to 10 degrees over the next 10 minutes. Try not to get too antsy and cut into the steak at this point. Not only is it important to reach that proper temperature, but also you'll lose all of that juicy goodness if you cut into your steak too soon. Okay, we've been patient enough. Let's go ahead and dig into this bad boy. But first, I'm going to add a little bit of homemade garlic and herb butter. You can find this garlic and herb butter recipe at the video up here. When cutting a filet mignon, it is best to cut against the grain for the most juicy and tender meat. I'm so excited! Oh, that is so incredibly tender, full of delicious flavors. Why leave the comfort of your own home if you can eat a filet mignon in your PJs? If you liked what you saw here today, make sure you check out these other healthy dinner recipes. And don't forget to give it a big ol' thumbs up below. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss another nourishing meal to serve your loved ones. See you again soon.